Hello, my name is Charles Kelly, and I'm an architect and urban designer at ZGF Architects in Portland, Oregon. And this is a summary presentation of our paper called Regenerative Urbanism, Platform to Next Generation Practice. It's co-authored with Scott Edmondson from Sustainability 2030 Institute. There are no disclosures to report. This paper will talk about the urgency. It'll present a new approach in regenerative system sustainability to address that urgency. It'll consider how to work at the sustainable scale of the built environment, the urban district, and how smart governance can catalyze a regenerative economy from a regenerative built environment. So our predicament is that our current approach may not produce sustainability in the time we need, that most studies are anticipating societal collapse much sooner than we expected due to climate change. And we need to find a way to counteract this life support system insecurity. And part of it is understanding that we mistakenly see the problem as environmental, sharing our frustration that the planet can't support the population that's currently inhabiting it, and treating the symptoms, not the sources, and using really a static approach in planning to address these symptoms when in reality, we need a more dynamic sort of perspective to understand the system of systems. Consequently, we misspecify sustainability and often go in the wrong direction or kind of move too slowly. What we need to do is instead of making sustainable components and focusing on elements of the urban environment of the planet, we need to be making or imagining how to blend systems more effectively. So life support system security needs to focus on a sustainable scaled economy, one that sees the problem as our current economy destroying our regenerative capacity, and sees the built environment as the economy and solves the problem by redesigning the economy through a redesigned regenerative built environment that sustains desired human and natural outcomes and creates regenerative local economies, that advances an emerging transformative regenerative planning and design method, shifting from reducing impacts to eliminating impacts at their source, moving from linear flows in the human system that produces waste and uses up finite resources into circular flows that produce no waste and use infinitely regenerated resources. And it arises from a redefining understanding of sustainability around regeneration as a core principle and redefining our practice. Moving from silos to systems, moving from non-renewable to renewable, moving from net negative to net positive, to shift. This shift connects the human economy and society to the biosphere's living systems and allows us to ensure life support system security through biosystem mimicry to create a circular economy at this district scale, which is the scale in which you can start to blend nature and human systems in a more considered way. But to do so, you'll need to formulate policies and rules in our planning practice, adding water and habitat to urban design decisions and prioritizing energy use efficiency in architecture and shifting from aesthetics to habitat recreation in landscape architecture and shifting away from gray to green, urban infrastructure. And then going to see those cities that that are using their existing investments to invigorate their potential at regenerating urbanism around the world in bold programs and projects. And this concept of using the existing budget to reconfigure our cities is critical change in perspective by integrating the performance imperatives into the city through reconfiguring the built environment and infrastructure with more regenerative systems, using the existing budgets in new ways, imagining the built environment as the built economy, and so doing, create a new design that is a win-win for future jobs and supportive of the environment, so we can have them coexist and interoperate. To defend against increasingly hostile nature from the accelerating climate change with a method that mimics the benign and productive regenerative processes of pre-climate change living systems. And we see the sustainable scale of the built economy as the district, but we know that urban biomimicry, we need to add a new goal of resource regeneration, and we need to consider a new action of very intense cooperation, and we need to have an outcome, a planned outcome, to be a new governance structure to hold the community's behavior, nature, and the setting together in one place. And we have accomplished this in the Kashu-Inoha, in Chiba Prefecture, in the Innovation Campus, which is the largest LEED and LEED Platinum certified smart city in the world. And it's do this because it has a local coordinating entity and a governance structure that allows itself to deploy building and site performance guidelines to organize the economy in nature to convert a transit-oriented development into a regenerative community. And I think that this is really the key, is having a public-private academic entity with cooperative groups that really is a hub for innovation with the community, and having the community fully understand the metabolic flows in their district and how they can shape the nature and water to make settings that stimulate economic activity and livability, and in this case, to reconcile Japan's national interest in addressing resiliency, low birth rates, super aging, and economic malaise. So they use the economy and the setting very carefully to generate new outcomes. We studied this concept in San Francisco with Scott Edmonton to just study what would happen if you put a UDCK type entity in Central Soma and converted an eco district into a regenerative district by just enhancing the connection between water, heat, and waste cycling between buildings across the district, having a UDCK entity that could manage water with heat exchange, coordinated blue-green infrastructure, connected blocks and buildings, and integrated resource and material cycling. And we realized that we could generate a $2 billion added market value with regenerative performance by just investing and reconfiguring the neighborhood with a governance structure in a slightly different way. And our work now in restorative justice builds on this concept. Working on the albino highway covers, we're working with the Black community in Portland has been historically harmed by racist planning policies around transportation to regenerate and restore a community. And this requires a governing entity to restore and maintain facilities and programs for Black historic albino community. In the same way that we would address climate change, we can address restorative justice. And finally, in closing, I think we all know that a very powerful investment in a smart building that's very carbon neutral is very important, and that can be catalytic to a district, but we also really need to be thinking about spending as much time thinking about the district and how it integrates and makes a new economy to allow many different buildings and different groups of people to interact and sustain themselves in economic prosperity with nature. So in closing, the global practice really needs to consider using existing budgets to fund restorative instead of degenerative solutions, design new innovative governance structures, and to generate and coordinate regulations and investment that create the regenerative built environment, which in turn creates sustainable urban economies for communities. And so with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for your attention, and wishing you all great success in pursuing regenerative urbanism. Thank you.